Kyle McCord, QB1 for at least 1 week. Ohio State going with the junior to start against Indiana on Saturday in Memorial Stadium. I think that's what they call it. The 40-year vet Tim May, Andy Backstrom, Spencer Holbrook. No time to waste, fellas. Kyle McCord is the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes against Indiana on Saturday. Tim, big takeaway. Real quick, Devin Brown will play.
Yes.
And will play a lot, according to Ryan Day. But Kyle McCord is getting those first snaps. He is your official starting quarterback for the start of the season. The 2023 Buckeyes get underway Saturday, and it'll be number 6 behind center.
Yeah, it's interesting. It played out the way we thought it was going to play out low those many weeks ago. The drama came along because one guy would take a lead and the other guy would take a lead. And, I even asked Ryan Day, was there sort of a moment where he kind of turned to Kyle McCord and said, hey, you may be blowing it here. Now, he didn't try to play favorites in this whole thing, but clearly, according to Ryan Day, the last week and a half, Kyle McCord stepped forward, which is what he was seeking from one of those two guys. And the funny thing was, when he was asked how those two guys took it, he said he took it well. It's almost like they understood that was the pecking order.
Yeah.
And I think that settles that room down for everybody. But I think Devin Brown is probably going to look at it as still a competition, and Kyle McCord certainly should look at it as that, because they're both going to play, and we'll see if this gets settled on the field, which is always the way Ryan Day really wanted it to get settled in the first place. How do these guys do against live opponents?
They're both going to play, and they're both going to play meaningful snaps. Ryan Day was asked, is Devin Brown just going to come in when it's the fourth quarter and it's a late game situation? Mop up duty, right? No, it's going to be meaningful snaps. At least that's the plan. There's this whole concept of how do you know when to switch guys in and out. He said it's going to be a feel thing, knowing when to switch both quarterbacks. But it is really interesting that this is meaningful snap action. This is, in my eyes, the competition still continuing. I think the decision was made to make Kyle McCord the starter.
You got to have a starter for the opener.
We had to have someone needs to take the first snap, right? And we were told last week, if it's completely even still, it's going to be the veteran guy, basically. And that's what's happened here. Now, I don't know if it's completely even still, because he did say that Kyle McCord made enough of a separation to earn this start.
Yeah.
And the consistency he showed from the last 10 to 14 days helped him do that. So I do think he does have the leg up. But the fact that Devin Brown is playing in this game and will play what it seems like significant snaps tells me that we didn't really learn anything groundbreaking today. This thing's still happening.
Well, the problem, Andy, and we talked about this before we came on camera, is like whatever your priors were, they've been confirmed by Ryan Day, right? Like my priors were that Kyle McCord would end up winning the starting job regardless. Your priors were that this battle is still completely wide open. Well, Kyle McCord, Ryan Day said the gap was enough to name a starter. That confirms what I've been saying the whole offseason. Then he said, Devin Brown, we need to see him play before we make a decision on who's our quarterback going forward. That confirms what you've been saying. You've been saying that it's an open competition. It's closer than people think. Well, the gap is enough to name a starter, but not enough to crown him as the starter for the 2023 entire season. All three of us have different opinions on this quarterback battle. All three of us can find a quote from Ryan Day in there that confirms exactly what we thought heading into this. And that's, I think, part of the problem that Ohio State runs into now is, okay, you have a junior who, no matter what, to an extent, will be looking over his shoulder, knowing that the other guy is on the sideline. I don't love the idea of that. It also means that Kyle McCord can either run away with it and take that, or if he struggles, does he think he's going to get benched? Or does Ryan Day let him work through those struggles before bringing Devin Brown in? If you pull him after 3 series and he's struggling, then I don't think that you really are giving him a chance to work through struggles of a first-time starter on the road. But if you don't, then you risk losing a Big Ten game on the road, because it's still a Big Ten road game, and you got to give Devin Brown a chance. I think there are some problems with this method, but I also think Ryan Day admitting that there's enough of a gap to name a starter is something worth noting. It's worth noting for me because that's what I thought. But it is worth noting, I think, for you guys too, that okay, just tuck that away, because if in 2 weeks he says, yeah, Kyle's still the starter, he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, you could kind of see it coming in hindsight when we look back on a day like, August 29th.
Yeah, but, who isn't looking over their shoulder? In my opinion, the way you judge a guy is you have a big-time competition, and you got to stay on this certain level, or you can get demoted, so to speak. You can get relegated.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect scenario to have two really talented quarterbacks pushing each other. As Ryan Day stated before camp started, that's what you wanted more than anything else was competition. They got it at the highest level, it sounds like, at the most important position on the field. And if either one of these guys, whoever you named as a starter, if he's spending more time looking over his shoulder, then he's not your guy anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of these guys, once they get that spot, is going to be looking over their shoulder. They're going to be looking down the field trying to make things happen. And the guy you want out of there is the guy who's looking over his shoulder, who has his rearview mirror going as much as he does his forward looking. It's really going to be interesting because as Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, said, he's a St. Joe's Prep alum himself, which is where Kyle McCord's from. Number one, he gave a hoorah for that. But on top of that, as he described Kyle McCord, and it's probably the best way of describing him, he's a cool customer. And it appears the team responds to him when he's in there. As long as he can keep that cool customer aspect of it going, I think he's going to be fine.
It's very interesting some of the phrases Ryan Day used when asked why Kyle McCord for Saturday against Indiana. He used the word consistency. He used the phrase taking care of the football. He used the phrase, you just take your pick. There were some telling phrases in there that give you an insight into what he's been seeing out on the practice field the last few days. To name Kyle, there is a level of consistency there. There is a level of being smart with his throws, being smart with what he does with the football. You can kind of start to pick apart how this exactly played out over the last 10 to 14 days, Andy. And I will, first of all, give a lot of credit to Kyle McCord for stepping up. He almost got called out like a week or so ago. Like, hey, this competition is too close to call. You're the veteran. And it sounds like he did take a step forward and step up. But then you also have to give just a insane amount of credit to Devin Brown for making it this close to take the first snap against Indiana in the first place.
Absolutely, and if Ryan Day didn't trust Devin Brown, he wouldn't be playing at all.
Yes.
Like, if there was no trust in his ability to take care of the ball, he would not be playing. We've seen that with other players. We talked about that all last season with Dallin Hayden. Why isn't he on the field? And we were speculating there might have been some, ball carrying, ball security issues potentially happening here in the Woody. Now, if he didn't trust a player, they wouldn't be playing. The fact that Devin Brown is going to be playing this game, meaningful snaps, tells me that he at least trusts him enough. This is week one. They need to win this game. They probably will, okay? But you need to win convincingly. You can only lose if it's a tight game. Then people are going to talk a lot about, hey, press the panic button, yes or no. And so I think that it says a lot about the confidence in both of them. I think they're really confident in both of these guys. And I agree with you that credit needs to be given to both of them right now. Now we'll reassess after they actually play a football game. But it has been impressive to see how they've handled this, impressive that both of them have stuck around, which is rare in today's day and age. And this could work out really well for Ohio State. This is not 2015 with Cardell Jones and JT Barrett. Look, these are two guys that are former 5-stars, Elite 11 finalists that haven't played a lot of football. Kyle McCord's one start was in 2021. That was 2 seasons ago. So if nothing else, you could get some really good data on both of these guys. And if it pans out the way where Kyle just runs with it, you still get to see Devin Brown play, and maybe he sticks around for next year and is the guy next year. And then you actually have data to base that on.
If either one of them plays perfect, has a perfect scenario or playing time on Saturday, I'll be stunned. That's why Ryan Day and his staff, but especially Ryan Day, who makes the call on the starting quarterback, there's this weird convergence of you've got to be patient to a certain extent because there are going to be new things. I mean, Indiana's going to throw the book at them from a blitz standpoint. You got to figure with 3 new starters on the offensive line, along with the starting quarterback, and it just, microcosm, brand new starting center and brand new starting quarterback. Indiana's going to throw the book at these guys. So you've got to be, to a certain extent, patient, but you've also got the urgency has to be there because, as you pointed out, it's a conference opener on the road, which is tough. But as we well know, it could be Youngstown State. Every game for Ohio State matters. You don't have room really for that error, for that loss, for that, you lose the game, but boy, did you find your starting quarterback? You know what I mean? I mean, you don't have that luxury when you're at Ohio State, and Ryan Day knows that. I think Ryan Day, just reading the tea leaves, and I think he feels really good about both of these guys. And I asked him, does he give you more butterflies when it's your starting quarterback you're worried about and not your starting, left guard or whatever? And of course it does, because the quarterback has his hands on the ball every play. But I think he feels about as good as you could for a first-time starting quarterback in this scenario with Kyle McCord.
It's also interesting that Ohio State has to learn something about these two quarterbacks because after this week against Indiana, because after this week is against Youngstown State, I don't know truly how much you're going to learn about the quarterbacks against Youngstown State. I don't even know how much you're truly going to learn about them against the Western Kentucky defense. You have to know what you're doing going to South Bend. And so that's why I think this Indiana game is even more critical. We could chalk it up as, Indiana's going to be bad. We'll talk about that on Friday in bold predictions. I think Indiana's going to be really bad. But they're still Big Ten. Those are Big Ten athletes on the field. You have to learn something about your quarterbacks here because the data may be a little skewed. The data may be a little skewed against Youngstown State. It may be skewed against Western Kentucky because those are just not comparable opponents.
By the way, Western Kentucky, I think, beat Indiana last year. So.
No,
Is that right?
I think they came close.
Whatever.
Maybe
it was a hell of a game, the way I understand it.
Yeah, and so
reports.
Point taken, Tim. I think all of this is to say that Ryan Day, I think, is making the correct decision for the Indiana game. Whether that's the correct decision moving forward is to be seen Saturday at 3:30 on CBS for you, from the press box for us. Some of you probably making the trip to Bloomington, but for Tuesday, August 29th, I think this is the right call as of now. Do you agree, Andy?
Yeah, I want to see both of them play. We're going to see both of them play. That's kind of what I was hoping to hear, and that's what we're going to get to see. I'm not surprised that Kyle's the one getting the nod.
Nope.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll see. But this Indiana defense is going to be interesting. It's a lot of new faces. This is another team that's really taking advantage of the transfer portal. 23 guys overall they've added through the portal.
Including
and
possibly their starting quarterback.
They've got some corners in from the portal as well.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of new faces there. And I think when you're looking at a defense that's led by Tom Allen, it has not been up to par the last couple of years. But in 2020, it was pretty solid. And he's a defensive head coach. He just brought in another defensive coordinator that was just in this building last year, Matt Guerrieri, who was an analyst and advisor to Jim Knowles, coached with him at Duke. He knows a little bit about what Ohio State likes to do. The system's the same offensively. There's a different quarterback, yes. But again, there are going to be some wrinkles that Indiana's going to throw Ohio State's way. I did think it was interesting when Ryan Day started talking about how they're just so confident in this offensive line. He did solidify that. We know it for sure. It's going to be Josh Simmons at left tackle. We already knew that. Donovan Jackson at left guard. But Carson Hinsman solidified as the starting center. And then Matthew Jones at right guard. And then Josh Fryer at right tackle. And it feels like they really believe this group can help whoever is starting at quarterback, which is Kyle McCord this week.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more to break down at Ohio State for Ohio State at lettermenrow.com. A couple other announcements here. Jaden Fielding will be the starting kicker for Ohio State. That is an interesting scenario. We joked about that off air. In a different world, we would have led with that. But the quarterback battle is just a little too enticing.
I don't
not
know,
to
man.
talk
You're
about.
starting. Your kicker is still, everybody remembers the last play of the Peach Bowl, wide left, and the kicker is in his own realm is about as important as it gets too, other than the starting quarterback, because he can win or lose, not just a game for you, but a dream for you.
Well, so Jaden Fielding will have a chance to help with that dream for Ohio State. He is the starting kicker against Indiana. Carson Hinsman, like you said, the starting center. Ohio State declining to name a starting free safety. That battle was ongoing between.
Yeah, what about this though? How about giving you some props about Hartford? I mean, you noticed him right off the bat.
Well, thank you, Tim.
No, but I mean, it's interesting because I'm telling you, the more they talk about him, the more I'm sold. I mean, Malik Hartford, he could end up being the starting free safety as this season goes along.
If you told me that he started at Indiana, I would call you an idiot. If you told me he started at Purdue, I would say you're a genius. I think that if you want a bold prediction there from me, it won't surprise me if he's starting by the middle of the season. But I was told in a YouTube comment yesterday that I'm too arrogant. So just thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
I didn't make that comment.
No, I know, but I wrote about Malik Hartford in February as a guy to watch because of some intel from people in this building. And he's now in line potentially to start. I think that free safety battle is interesting. We're going to talk about defense tomorrow when we're in this building.
By the way, tell your mom to quit commenting on those.
Oh, jeez. Wow. I think that's one to end on.
Or that guy at Lowe's, the guy you've been dealing with at Lowe's.
Quarterback battle settled for now. Ohio State has QB1 for Saturday, September 2nd at Indiana. The 40-year vet Tim May making the trip to Bloomington. Andy Backstrom making the trip to Bloomington. I am just Spencer Holbrook. I will be there as well, as will Matt Parker down on the field taking photos for all of the stories we're writing. We're covering the Buckeyes in the lead up to Ohio State versus Indiana. We're covering them 365 days a year. Right now, you can get Lettermen Row 50% off, $50 for an entire year, or $1 for a month. Just give us a chance. I promise you will not regret it.
Wow.
But for the 40-year vet Tim May, for Andy Backstrom, I'm Spencer Holbrook, reporting here from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is a rapid reaction presented by Buyers Auto, the best place to buy a new or used auto in Central Ohio. Go get your auto today from Buyers Auto. QB1, Kyle McCord. QB2, Devin Brown. That is subject to change, but for now, Kyle taking the first snap against the Hoosiers. We will see you in Bloomington on Saturday. We'll see you back in this building tomorrow for another breakdown of the Buckeyes.